Jared Welch's Aaron Halterman. It is Thursday, December 29th, the last Thursday of 22, and this Splickers Off. What's up, man?
What's up? Yeah, last show of the year, and it's gonna be a good one. I'm pretty excited about what we've got here. Not a handicapping show, but I think more of a year-end wrap up and really debating also that 3-year-old award that's continuing to get hotly contested on Twitter and other things like that as well. So two really good things we're going to do today, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, you have good racing, decent racing. Some of the prep sort of like for the Pegasus, some of those races, Colonel Liam's back kind of in a prep for the turf. Not like we don't have racing this weekend, but we thought it was a good opportunity to kind of get on here. We've got previews for all those on our YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure you do that. Just make sure you hit that subscribe button, and you can get, you can see all those videos of previews of those races. So we thought, let's attack this race or this year for the last time, really, because once 2023 hits, the next time you see us, these 2-year-olds are 3, and the the Derby Trail is, as we say, on the way. It's like, so you don't have a lot of time to kind of rehash 22. So it's a good time to do that. And considering what we saw this past weekend, we'll talk a lot about this in a little bit, but what we saw this past weekend, yeah, you're right. The debate between Taiba and Epicenter, it's going to be close, man. I really think I see it going either way.
I could too. It'll be a good debate to have. And like I said, the kind of the thing was, hey, if he wins at Malibu and he does it pretty impressively, then you're going to have a debate. And then here we are, because he did win it very impressively. Again, kind of like you alluded to. And yeah, you talked about the videos, and literally 2 minutes before I got over here to this video stream, I did the first Kentucky Derby prep of 2023, which is the Smarty Jones Stakes from Oaklawn Park on Sunday. And that'll be up and posted right after we get off of this. I'll post that one up for us. So a lot of preview videos, like you said, you can check those out if that's what you want. But I really think this Taiba Epicenter debate is going to be pretty awesome. And I think when we review the top 10 races of the year, we're going to look at this and go, holy shit, was this not a great year of racing? Remember back in the Pegasus in January, we're like, this might be the best race we see in the last 10 years. And it was actually really good. And it's not number 1 or 2 or 3 on our list. That's how good this year was in racing.
In fact, you did your list, I did my list. We compared. We're like, all right, what did we leave out? What didn't we? Where do we look at? Our top 3 was initially was 100% exact order, so no debates on that one. And then you had, I think you had Pegasus somewhere in the top 5, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that was in 2022. And that, I mean, I realize how insane that sounds, but to your point, that was a hell of a race, and I literally just kind of forgot. I remember the race, but I just for some reason thought it was not this year. You know what I mean? Because it's been that kind of year. And so, yeah, we covered the bases here with it. You're right. And we left off a lot of good races. Gosh, the 3-year-old crop, Flight Line's on our list several times. You've got, like you say, Epicenter's on the list as well. So it's like, Donegal, you have a lot of horses that are 3-year-olds, the olders. So it was a hell of a year. And yeah, it's a good opportunity to kind of go back and look at that, because, dude, it was. And by the way, while we're doing this, we're going to talk a little about the debate between Taiba and Epicenter. Give us your thoughts. What are your guys' favorite races? Throughout the show, we'll bring those up, talk about them. If we don't have them on our list, we'll talk about maybe we did. That was one of the ones we had to throw out, but we liked. What was your kind of most iconic race of the year? We want to know. Make sure you hit the that chat and make sure you let us know. Going through some of these comments. Yeah, we had by the way, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Hope everyone had a good Christmas. Happy holidays, of course. And decent, obviously the Malibu, which we'll talk about with Taiba, but decent racing last weekend. 2-year-olds. We saw a few. I see a comment here. I don't know. Yeah, Corona Bolt. Yeah, that horse was impressive. For Brad Cox. You talk about Brad Cox. I was just looking at it. I was looking at it earlier. I didn't see it. It must have just come out. Smarty Jones. Your horse, Victory Formation, in there as well. So Brad Cox, we're starting to see, of course, Brad Cox, Jason Road won the Gun Runner. So the Brad Coxes are starting to kind of show up, and this could be a big kind of starting point for your horse, Victory Formation.
Yeah, Brad Cox also had a nice 2-year-old filly win a stakes race at Fairgrounds as well. So yeah, he's definitely loaded with really good horses. And yeah, Victory Formation again just completed that Smarty Jones. It's not out yet, but it will be out as soon as this comes out. Well, about 10 minutes after this is over, it'll be posted up on the YouTube page. And yeah, Victory Formation should be good. But we could talk about who should be. Let's talk about who is. And Corona Bolt won that as far as last weekend, and who's the 2-year-old that really impressed. It was Corona Bolt. We had Kentucky Derby prep races there in the Gun Runner. Jason's Road looked okay for sure, and is a horse to kind of take a look at, no doubt. But I thought Corona Bolt looked even better. Got to stretch him out. That's a big thing. 2 races around one turn, but look at that pedigree, and I don't think Corona Bolt should have too much trouble stretching out. We don't know about Bolt Oro yet, as far as the sire goes, but listen, he looked really, really good. He did it with ease, very effortlessly, winning that Sugar Bowl stakes there at Fairgrounds. So he's an exciting one without any doubt. He was the most exciting horse. Well, I don't know. Faustin for Bob Baffert at Santa Anita on debut break in the maiden. You could make a case for him too. Those two kind of won that weekend, so to speak. Yeah, I know it was Monday, but it felt like a weekend.
Yeah, that was very impressive. Faustin. That horse is going to be widely claimed next Monday in the fantasy league, because it's the Baffert horse who obviously showed a ton of talent and didn't win going on gate to wire like a lot of those 2-year-old Baffert horses do on debut. This horse kind of was set patiently back and kind of waited to come, and being the son of Tappet, obviously you think it's going to get better with distance, it's going to get better with age, and had that late kick, then he looked like he was just getting going when the race finished, and so I thought that horse is going to stretch out really nicely.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about him. I think we'll have an 8 or 9 way shake for that horse on Monday for the fantasy league, or I guess it'd be Tuesday the shake would happen, because he kind of found some other gears, you would say, and he didn't really like a lot of 2-year-olds this early in the year when they're sprinting, they go out to the front and they just go gate to wire, and it's like, well, it's impressive. This horse kind of came out of it. He got stopped once or twice, still kept going. I thought he was really impressive. And with the pedigree that he has, he really shouldn't win a sprint race, right? I mean, this horse is bred to go long. You look at his pedigree and it's like, wow, he's pretty damn good. So like I said, I think we'll have a big shake for him. He was very impressive. He got an 89 buyer for the effort, I think you mentioned. And, that's a solid debut without any doubt. And I don't think it's a horse that's going to just pop crazy going shorter. Like I said, I think he will build up. I think he'll get better as the distances get longer.
And I saw as well, talking about buyers, Colonel Bolt got a 97
yes.
for that effort. I mean, that's no joke for a 2-year-old.
I think the only difference between the two is, like, Faustin seems like a slam dunk, like a backward slam dunk, that they go longer, he gets better. Where Corona Bolt, it's like, I think he will, but I don't really know. You know what I mean? But a 97 buyer, shit. I mean, I think, again, a pedigree that should stretch, right? Especially going a mile 16, mile and 8. Maybe he doesn't get a mile and a quarter. Big deal. For right now, he's got plenty of tools. Yeah, he earned it. Look at visually. Didn't you think that looked like a 97? I mean, he dominated that group. I text you right after the race. I said, look, that's not a horrific field he faced. Like, it's not the greatest, but those horses could run that he was up against. He made them look terrible.
Yeah, and I don't remember the name of the horse he beat on debut, but that horse came back to win by like 4 lengths after that. So it's not like, I mean, this horse is beating good horses en route to these, and obviously you got to assume we're going to see him somewhere down the road in that Fairgrounds circuit for Brad Cox. It's going to be like we talked about last week. It is starting to feel like you got a few that you can at least get excited about, but it's still, as we enter the 3-year-old season, it still feels like it's just completely up in the air as far as which of this bunch of Brad Coxes and which ones of these bunch of Bafferts, and not to mention what's Faustin going to do? What are we going to, Baffert's still fighting it, but as it is now, he's not getting any points. None of these horses are getting points, and so we're going to have the same thing we had last year. How long is it before they get transferred to another barn? And will they get transferred to is this year they just say, fuck it, we're just not doing the Derby? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of questions still in the air as we talk about it, because we keep talking about all these Bafferts, but the elephant in the room is they can't get to the Derby.
Can I ask you a controversial question? We'll probably get terrible comments on Twitter, or not Twitter, but our YouTube comments.
What's that?
At this point, this Baffert punishment, who is it really punishing?
Oh, it's totally punishing, the fans,
Bettors,
bettors.
fans, people that like to follow this.
Yeah.
This is a joke at this point. I'm sorry. I'm so over this. It's ridiculous. And I'm not a Baffert supporter at all. So stop with that comment. But at this point, this is a joke. I mean, it's like every week you have to deal with this and stupidity. And again, the owners didn't budge. And when they didn't budge, guess what? It punishes you, me, the people that like to follow the sport, the people that like to bet on the sport.
And it feels like
you always get screwed, by the way, the bettors. But anyway, go ahead.
And we talked about it. It seemed like the whole time, but it never fails. It's like you look at it over here. It's Baffert, and he doesn't have any horses that can run the Derby, and he sucks. And then you flash over to TVG on a Saturday at Santa Anita, and they're like, all you see is Baffert. He won every stakes race, every dirt race this past weekend at Santa Anita, including 3 of them were graded stakes. So it's like the dude is just still living the life out there. Nothing's changed, nothing's changed there. But it's just we still have this other weird thing that's looming over the sport. It's okay, whatever. To me, it's you should just find the dude couple mil and just let racing continue, because it's just no one, it's like you said, it's not punishing him. Clearly he doesn't, and then it's not punishing racing itself. It's just punishing the fans and the bettors.
Yep. Because now, okay, you're punishing the fans because as a lead up to this is all you talk about. You hear this shit, and it's punishing the bettors because once they change the barns, you have this unknown aspect to it that you also have to handicap in a way.
Yeah.
And last year, you can't tell me it didn't screw those horses up to some degree. And also, Baffert loses control of Taiba, and then the plans change to Taiba because, in my opinion, there's pressure put from the ownership group where maybe Baffert would have said, no, we're not doing it. Where the new guys were like, oh yeah, we'll do whatever you want. You own the horse. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe I'm just, going too far with that. But at the same time, I just feel like it adds this other dimension that doesn't really matter. Baffert's just going to get him right back after the Derby's over, right? It's no owner budged. Nothing happened with this. I mean, sure, maybe there was 1 or 2, but most of these owners, the big ones, the one that matter, it didn't change anything for them.
I'm not going to I'll just say this. I'm not going to. There's no way the horse could have vied for horse of the year because of the horse named Flightline. But
right.
Had Taiba been, whatever the case, whether if say Baffert just had him the whole time and he wasn't suspended, that horse I feel like would have won one of the 3 legs of the Triple Crown, and probably would have been in contention for horse of the year because of the way they had to just stop and reset that horse after the spring because of what they tried. And to your point, and a lot of talk was, we heard they were going to do a race and then go to the Preakness,
Lexington Preakness.
Lexington to the Preakness. And then all of a sudden it's he's in the Derby. It's Santa Anita and then the Kentucky Derby. So you're you wonder if they just would have followed that, goes and runs well in the Preakness. Obviously he could have won that. And wins the Haskell, wins the trap, or whatever the case may be. That snowball, but instead they had to completely pause on the horse. And to your point, it's all of that was because of change of trainers and then maybe the ownership. I just don't know that would have happened had it stayed with Baffert.
Well, and like Christopher said, it cost him life was good. That's not really what I'm talking about, though. I'm talking about the Kentucky Derby trail and the oddness that it's caused. And it really hasn't hurt Bob Baffert. It's hurt everybody that follows the Kentucky Derby. Yeah, Life is Good left him because Naira said, hey, you're not running horses here. That's basically why Life is Good left, right? But I'm talking about Kentucky Derby contenders. We all kind of thought, hey, when these horses, the upcoming 2-year-olds, now he can't train horses to the Derby, these owners will go elsewhere. They didn't. And so now it's here you have another year where he has all the horses and he can't earn points. And at the end of the day, it's just okay, fine, giving him to Yaktine and Sean McCarthy, it's all just a joke, right? I mean, he's the trainer, for God's sake. Still, I don't care what anybody says. So at this point, I'm over it. And I know people are going to say, oh, you Baffert lover, and that's not the case. And you go back and listen to any of our shows. I roasted the guy, but look, it's to the point where it's hurting racing more than it's hurting him.
Yeah, what Rodney's point. It's so crazy. Like if I would have told you before the Derby, he was our pick too, Rodney, as you know, Taiba that is to win the Derby. And it's like if I would have said, hey, before the race, I would have said Taiba's gonna win. We don't know for sure, but good chance that his horse is gonna be 3-year-old of the year. You've been like, great. Now I'm so confident, in that Derby pick. Like that's the one race that he just completely was awful in. It was obviously up against way too much, asking way too much, but it's just kind of weird. And we'll get to that here in a sec with the year of it, how bad he was in that race, yet still might win the 3-year-old honors. So,
yep,
it's just been that kind of year. No one really slammed the door, like you said last week on the show, like kind of is given an opportunity for other horses to come in. And so let's talk about that, obviously. So today's show, let's debate it. I think we might be on the same page now. I don't know. Taiba versus Epicenter as 3-year-old Male Eclipse Champion of 2022. We'll talk about the who's got the edge on each other. Obviously, the Eclipse Awards into January. We'll find out kind of the result. But right now, it's hotter than ever after Taiba dominated in the Malibu on December 26th. So we got to talk about that debate. Taiba versus Epicenter. Obviously, both horses are done for the year. And then we're going to give our top 10 races of 2022. Is it the Classic? Is it Pacific Classic? The Kentucky Derby, maybe? The Pegasus World Cup? All these races that we're going to relive. We're going to show the replays. We're going to talk about it while it's going on. So stay tuned for that and make sure you give us your number one race of the year as well. Let's go.
It is interesting when you look at Taiba, and he was way up against it without any doubt in that Derby, but you do kind of look and go, boy, if Bob was there, what would have happened? Wouldn't you love to know? Like maybe he gets 12 again. But, and again, that comes back to the one aspect where we were just like, yeah, whatever. Like Baffert's probably still the trainer. And,
But it did create, even though we picked him, it did create such a question mark on how to do it, and who is he really good enough to win, and who's really training them, and it's just those little things that added a little bit of a wrinkle there that we're not normally used to seeing with Bob Baffert. So yeah, guys. So let's just a lot of the comments here. He had his issues and Bob fixed it. Tim wouldn't.
And I don't know if that's true or not, but
I just think it is.
Maybe.
I think Baffert knew. You even look at the way he runs now. Look at the way he ran in the Malibu. He's a lazy horse. He does not run smoothly in these races whatsoever until the very end. He's a gutty horse, and you got to figure that out. And I think Baffert kind of knew that, which is why it's not really unrealistic for Bob Baffert to maybe attempt a horse like Taiba. We saw it with Justify, obviously, to attempt that, but he knew maybe better not to even do that because of said issues, and obviously forcing that horse down that path, and then of course unraveling it is they had to kind of reset it a little bit. But the talent's always been there, and I think Taiba's got a monstrous future in him if he continues to develop. I think he's a really good prospect for next year.
I'm not going to sit here and comment on what Tim did or didn't do because I wasn't there. I feel like I really will, and I don't know anything like behind the scenes about this. This is just pure speculation on my point. I want to make that very clear, but I feel like if Bob would have been there, they would have went Lexington, Preakness, would have built him up a little better, wouldn't have tried to take that shot. And I get that the owner wanted to take it. I get it. I get it. But at the end of the day, I think if Bob would have been around, they would have taken that logical path. And I would almost bet you money if they would have taken that path, Lexington, Preakness, we probably wouldn't be having the discussion we're getting ready to have.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I honestly think that horse could have been, he wouldn't have obviously, I don't think he would have beaten Flightline ever in any kind of dream scenario, but he would have been in the discussion, I believe, heading into it more so than kind of feeling like he's had to work his way back into it this whole year to kind of at the very end make his case. So yeah, I'm with you. I think that really screwed him up a little bit. All right. When are the Eclipse Awards?
Who cares?
Oh, that's Anybody know? Ultimate doesn't care.
I got to be clear. This is great. Before we go ahead and talk about this, I could not care less about the Eclipse Awards. I mean, there's no chance I could care less about anything more than those. Hate them.
January 26th.
Okay, great. I'll be watching. Not.
All right. The Eclipse Awards are just about a month away here, and obviously after Taiba's dominating effort last week, or I guess on Monday, in the Malibu at Santana Park, we talked about on last week's show. If he were to win, and if he were to win impressively, he really makes a case for the 3-year-old male honors in this year's Eclipse Awards. Epicenter, Taiba, that seems to be the debate. Everywhere you go on Twitter, I think, it's like as soon as he ran, it's like, well, Taiba is, or Epicenter still did this. And it's a very interesting debate, Alterman, back and forth. I got the stats up here on the screen. So if you're watching this, you can see the stats there. Taiba this year, 7 starts, 4 wins, 1 second, 1 third, 8 starts for Epicenter, 4 wins, 3 seconds. So that's the killer right there. And 0 thirds. So they both won 4 races this year. Now Epicenter has made more money, especially with that Travers win, $2.8 million versus $1.9 million for Taiba. But both have 4 wins, and more importantly than that, Taiba, 4 of those wins, 3 of them are grade 1s. Only 1 of those 4 for Epicenter was a grade 1. So Halterman, I'll give it to you. Thoughts, Taiba, Epicenter?
Okay, I want to make one thing very clear right now. If you're a voter and you vote Taiba, I don't blame you. If you're a voter and you vote Epicenter, I don't blame you. It's your opinion. It's what matters to you. And they made it close enough to where it's not an angry situation if you're picking one over the other. Now, if Taiba wouldn't have won, say, the Malibu, then I would be very angry if people are still picking Taiba. But he did enough to make it interesting. And again, I'm not, if you're an Eclipse Award voter and you're picking Taiba, I'm not upset with you. If you're picking up Epicenter, I'm not upset with you. One thing is really bothering me, though, okay? It's this thought that Taiba won 3 grade 1s, so automatically he should be the pick. That is lazy voting, in my opinion. Really, really lazy voting, in my opinion, because this graded system is definitely fine as far as, hey, here's how you stack up races, and it gives everybody a general idea of what's going on. Let's take a look at what was in those grade 1 races versus what was in some of the grade 2 races that Epicenter ultimately won, right? The Santa Anita Derby was a horrific race. Stop if you're going to argue with that. Stop. It was horrible. Messier is horrible. The rest of the horses in that race were horrible even before that race, okay? So that's number one. You look at Pennsylvania Derby, legit grade 1 without any question, right? That was a tough race. You look at the Malibu, it wasn't the greatest. And it was also a 1-turn race. But I'll give him like half credit for that, for sure, right? Like that was a good win. He looked really impressive. Some of these grade 2 races, like the Jim Dandy, like the Louisiana Derby, like the Risen Star, they were stronger than some of the grade 1 races that Taiba won. So I hate he now has 3 grade 1s, so that he's my pick. I do not like that reasoning whatsoever. Now, what I do like about Taiba is I think he's better than Epicenter as far as talent. And I think he's kind of shown it, right? I mean, I really do. And I think that's really going to piss people off. This horse is raw as hell. Forget about the Derby. All of his other races have been fantastic. And honestly, if he just kind of knows where Cyberknife is, I think he wins the Haskell. And I think there's no debate about it whatsoever. And so that's why I say, if you're voting on Taiba, I get it. I think he is legit. Like, I think he deserves it. I think he had a campaign that deserves it. I still would lean towards Epicenter because he won the Travers, and I think that is a bigger win than anything Taiba had. And I think some of those grade 2 wins were better than the grade 1 fields that Taiba faced. And so because they were labeled grade 2 really doesn't mean shit to me, Jared, because I look at the fields and I look at who they beat. And I think he beat better horses than those other 2 grade 1s, not the Pennsylvania Derby, but the other 2, the Taiba beat. So that's why I would still go Epicenter. He also got second in those big-time Kentucky Derby and Preakness races everybody in the world wants to win as 3-year-olds. And Taiba, through no fault of his own, was 12th in the Kentucky Derby. And I say that very confidently. Taiba had every excuse in the world in the Kentucky Derby. I don't hold it against him, but Epicenter was still second in that race and came back to get second in the Jim Dandy. So it's Epicenter for me, but I have no argument if you're going to vote Taiba.
I mean, the fact that we're even having this conversation after that start with Taiba and obviously the Derby, like I think if after the Derby you would have said he's going to be a 3-year-old candidate of the year, you'd be like, yeah, right. There's no way, because you may never see him again after that effort.
Listen, it's tough because if Taiba and Epicenter race tomorrow and say they're all healthy and rested, blah, 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 I would pick Taiba to beat Epicenter. I think he's the better horse, but I don't think he had the better campaign. And I want to be clear again, through no fault of his own, right? I was on this podcast on the Haskell and you were like, I'm going to pick Taiba. And I was like, he could win. But once again, he is put in a terrible spot by his connections. You're coming off a 12th in the Kentucky Derby, the 4th lifetime race. You're shipping him all the way across the country and to run the Haskell. He has a ton of excuses to lose that race. And you picked him, and I didn't argue with it. But at the same time, it's impossible. They put him in impossible spots. And at times, he did the impossible. He shouldn't have won the Santa Anita Derby, right? And he did it. Pennsylvania Derby that was a tough spot for him, and he did it. And then all these 2-turn races, and we cut him back to 1 turn in the Malibu, and he did it. So he is super talented. I do think he is the better horse as far as talent goes. I just think Epicenter's body of work is just a bit stronger than Taiba's. And I'm just going purely on resume when it comes to who I would pick.
All right. So I think we are going to disagree a little bit here because even though I do understand your point, the bottom line is for me, 3 grade 1s to Epicenter's 1 is just, to me, there's no debate there. I get that as far as, it's no one's fault, I guess, if they're labeled grade 1s or grade 2s now. And so to that point, I went through and I did some fact checking, some background checking here in the last, say, 10 to 12 years. Obviously, 2 of them were Justify and Pharaoh. Those were given. They won the Triple Crown. There was no really debate, obviously, those 2 years. But the other ones, so you go back to 2021, Essential Quality, he had 2 grade 1s. Authentic 2020 had 3 grade 1s. Maximum Security had 3. West Coast had 2. Arrogant had 2. California Chrome actually had 4. That's the most ever, well, at least in the last 12 years. Well, maybe not if you don't count Pharaoh. 4 on that. Will Take Charge had 2. Pennsylvania Derby was only grade 2 that year, so it would have been 3.
So again, you're making my point. These grades don't really matter.
All of Another had 3. And now here, this one was an interesting one. Looking at Lucky in 2010 had 2 grade 1 wins. 2011, this was probably the most somewhat comparison I could find. Animal Kingdom had 1 grade 1 that year, and that was the Derby, right? That was the only grade 1 he won that year. In the voting, if you remember, that was extremely close with Caleb's Posse that year. Mm-hmm. Caleb's Posse had 111 votes that year to 114 from Animal Kingdom. Now, Caleb's Posse had 2 grade 1 wins. So he actually had more grade 1 wins, but they were sprinting. They were 1-turn races, or, the dirt mile, but not that classic, but you had that big win. So to your point, I wanted to make sure I included this stat because to what you're saying, that is an example of, okay, Caleb's Posse may have been the better horse from a perspective of, hey, he won a Breeders' Cup race. Hey, he won more grade 1 races. But Animal Kingdom won the big one, and he was maybe just a better horse. And if you look at Epicenter, even though he has less grade 1s than Taiba, he won the Travers, which is probably second to winning the Kentucky Derby. And so that is going to be a big factor, I think, for the voters of, yeah, he still only won 1 grade 1. It was a Travers.
The race that everybody wants to win outside of the 3 Triple Crown races. Yeah. And the other race that everybody wants to win out of 3 Triple Crown races, Taiba didn't win. And so that, again, Epicenter missed his chances. He could have won the Derby. If he won the Derby, won the Preakness, we're not talking about it. Taiba wins the Haskell, we're not talking about it. And that's why we're here, right? Again, these 3 grade 1s are crazy to me. First of all, where do you have Jack Christopher ranked?
Who?
Where do you have Jack Christopher? Is he second on your list?
As far as the
Top
3-year-old of the
3-year-olds.
year?
Yeah, top 3-year-old horse of the year. Yeah.
No, I'd still put Epicenter second.
Well, Jack Christopher won 2 grade ones.
Yeah, but they weren't in the quality of Epicenter's grade one.
Why?
Because it's the Travers. Travers has more weight than the races that that Jack Christopher won. Taiba winning 3 grade ones, even though the Pennsylvania Derby was legit. I still think that the Cincinnati Derby has a lot more stock to it than you're giving it. And I do think that the fact that he came back and won a race that he, in a one-turn race was impressive. So listen, you also have a recency factor that's going to come into play here. The last time we saw Epicenter, he's being banned off.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfortunate because if he would have ran that race and ran his race, it could have ended the debate then that day.
Honestly, it could have ended it either way, because if he runs and gets fourth behind Taiba, then I would probably have to lean with Taiba, right?
Yeah.
And if he gets second or third ahead of Taiba, then you'd lean Epicenter. Yeah.
And I was talking to Magic earlier today, and he's obviously, there's a leader of the Epicenter fan base. It's him, and he's like, listen, I hate to say it, but unfortunately, Taiba's probably going to win it, because the biggest fact is, like, he's still running, and Epicenter's not. And I get that's hard. That's pretty unfair, considering when he was running earlier in the year, Taiba wasn't, right?
Yeah.
And so, but it's all about recency and that's how the voters are going to look at, not necessarily what Epicenter was doing earlier in the year, but what's he doing now? And what's Taiba doing now? And that was the fact that he just came off a dominating effort in the Malibu.
Yeah, no, and I get it. And again, I'm not arguing that Taiba. My biggest argument is this 3 grade ones versus 1 grade one is just complete shit. And I don't get why people can't see it. I'm not arguing. If your argument is, I think Taiba's the better horse, great. If your argument is, look, he came back and ran fantastic despite being in tough situations, great. If your argument is, hey, look, I think he would kick Epicenter's ass, great. If your argument is, I just look at it and say, well, 3 grade ones versus 1, and that's it, I hate that. I just hate it, because to me, the Risen Star and the Louisiana Derby were both tougher than the Santa Anita Derby. And to me, the Jim Dandy and the Pennsylvania Derby was about the same. And now we're given credit for a 7 furlong grade 1 win, which I'm fine with completely. But also, you're going to hear the same people that are giving credit for that have Jack Christopher nowhere to be found, because, well, yeah, he has 2 grade 1s, but they were both in one-turn races. But wait, you just said Taiba got 3 grade 1s, and so I'm putting him on top because of that. But wait, one of them wasn't a one-turn race. Let's not forget that. So, I mean, if Jack Christopher wins the Malibu, is he now the horse of the year for 3-year-olds? No. Right? And so Taiba's resume, as good as it is for what he was put through, still is flawed in a lot of ways, in my opinion, when it comes to trying to say he's a dead fast lock over Epicenter to win this race, or to win this 3-year-old race, I should say.
Well, I mean, I think I brought up the point there with the Animal Kingdom. That's a really good example, because once he won the Derby, he did finish second in the Preakness, similar to what Epicenter did. But since then he didn't do. I mean, they ran the horse in the Breeders' Cup, but of course the horse the next year. But the horse, we didn't see a horse again after the Belmont and that year, and he still won Horse of the Year. And to your point that you're saying, Caleb's Posse kept running. Caleb's Posse was on the Derby trail, and they obviously cut him back, and then rest history. So even though he cut that gap, they still gave more to the horse that won the Derby, won the big race. One was the horse, we hadn't seen the horse win a race since May, and the horse still won, even though Caleb's Posse just won the Breeders' Cup. So there's going to be a lot of factors going into, hey, even though the last time we saw Epicenter win was back in the summer of the Travers, it was the Travers versus a one-turn race in the Malibu.
I want to get to Matt's point here, because I think people might be missing what I'm saying. I'm not saying the Jim Dandy was a fantastic, great race. I'm saying just because the Jim Dandy was a grade 2 and the Santa Anita Derby was a grade 1 does not mean the Santa Anita Derby was a better race. A, it had 6 horses in the race. B, it had Messier, and that's it. It had nobody. Let me read. It had Happy Jack, Armagnac, Win the Day, and a Forbidden Kingdom who couldn't get a mile and an eighth if he jumped in the back of a pickup truck. It had nobody in the race. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying the Jim Dandy was a star-studded field. I'm saying if you're looking at this and you're going, well, I got to favor Taiba because the Santa Anita Derby was a grade 1 and a Jim Dandy was a grade 2. It's crazy. It's crazy.
When you compare the two like that,
these labels of these grade 1s, these grade 2s, when you get to that level in their preps for bigger races, it's just kind of a matter of who's ready to run at that moment. You're trying to time it up to the big race. The Jim Dandy is a prep for the Travers. The Santa Anita Derby is a prep for the Kentucky Derby. And so it's just kind of luck who falls where in what spots. Like the Arkansas Derby was a grade 1 race, but you go to the Wood Memorial and it's a grade 2. But the Wood Memorial had Mo Donegal in the race, right? Who won the Belmont. So
yeah,
the Mo Donegal was a better horse in the Wood Memorial than anything that was in the Santa Anita Derby minus Taiba, obviously. These preps, I don't know why they've got them all graded differently, but we as people and as handicappers and hopefully as voters can use our brains and click on the thing where it says who's in the race and look at the fields, right? That's what I'm saying. I'm saying don't be lazy. If the Santa Anita Derby is a grade 1 and the Louisiana Derby is a grade 2, click on the fields and look who was actually in the race.
Yeah, Mark says, and I wouldn't disagree. The most impressive 3-year-old performance was probably in the Travers that day. I said no. I agree with Aaron. I think Taiba is just more talented, better.
That's great. That's great.
I think so.
No argument.
It's certainly the closest one that I can remember, at least in recent years. And it's unfortunate that the 2 times we got to see them, one time Taiba, obviously was that the Derby was the Derby, and they rushed him into the race, and then the next one, Epicenter got hurt. So we just really never got to see those 2 match up. That could have eliminated any kind of discussion here.
Another good comment. The Florida Derby was a grade 1 this year. You guys tell me what was better, the Florida circuit or the Louisiana circuit, right? Again, use your brain when it comes to these graded things. They're not, it's not an exact science. And I'm not even mouthing the graded stakes committee. You can't predict who's going to show up in these races when you grade the races before the year starts, right? Like, I get it. It's tough. Like historically, yes, the Santa Anita Derby is a great race. This year, it really wasn't. There's really no argument that it was past Taiba.
Yeah, and to Richard's point, he made more than 1 million. The Travers obviously is a huge race, but he also some of those races that are grade 2s were still worth a lot of money, and that's going to go into that as well. So, if you're a voter, I know John's a voter. I know he in his latest column he's voting for Taiba. I think you're going to have a lot of people doing that in terms of just kind of the recency, plus the fact of, to your point, if you want to I just think he's better. Taiba's better. And you want to give the better horse, in my opinion, the award. Maybe that's not always the case, but for me it is. And that's why I would vote Taiba.
Yeah. And I guess, John, I think he's justified, obviously, voting Taiba. I said it before. He has brought up that 3 grade 1s, and it does stick right in my side. I don't like it. I don't like that argument. And John, I respect him about more than anybody else in the world, really, but I don't like that argument. I really don't. I think, again, if you're voting Taiba number 1, I don't have a problem with it because he's done enough. But if it's just because 3 grade 1s versus 1, I hate it.
All right. Well, there sounds like I don't know if we've. So if you're voting, if you had a vote in this thing, you would vote Epicenter.
I still would vote Epicenter. And really, it's based on a lot of the principles that I was taught. Grade 1 wins, going 1 turn don't mean quite as much. And let's look at the fields. Let's look who they beat. Who did they beat? And also, again, I'll say it. Epicenter could have made this very easy. Beat Rich Strike. He won 1 race this year. Beat Rich Strike in the Kentucky Derby. There's no debate. And Haskell, or win the Haskell for Taiba, and there's no debate. They could have made it a lot easier. They didn't. I said it last week. Anytime now you leave it up to the voters' hands and it's not a logical situation, either camp, the Taiba camp or the Epicenter camp, they can't really be mad because you could have made this a slam dunk and they just weren't quite good enough to do it. Whether it's Epicenter just wasn't quite good enough to hit one of those big time wins early on in the season, or whether it's Taiba just wasn't quite good enough to overcome what they asked him to do.
I guess there's the heart in you wants to, it's like you'd love to see Epicenter win it. The horse will never run again. Obviously, he's going to be retired. He's going to go to Stallion. And Taiba, I would say, is a morning line favorite as we stand here today to win Horse of the Year next year. And so he can still win an award. So you'd like to see Epicenter kind of go out on top, so to speak, even though the last time we saw him on the track, he was a Van Doff. So to me, even though I am a Taiba guy, not really going to go wrong here in terms of the results, because I think both horses are very deserving of it.
I think it's interesting that we are both kind of like, whatever happens, it's okay. That doesn't seem to be the case on Twitter. It's been a hard debate, and I'm on one camp or the other camp.
I know.
I'm with you. I don't really care either way who wins. I'm not going to sit here and argue with it. Like I said, John White has said in his column he's picking Taiba. I'm not going to tell him he's done for it. I think it's very much justified to pick him. If somebody made me vote Taiba over Epicenter, I wouldn't feel sick about it. I think they both are deserving, and it's just going to come down to a vote. I don't know. I think one's 7-5 and one's 8-5 as far as the morning line would go in this. I think it's going to be close. It's going to be interesting. They definitely made it tough on the voters this year. I don't really envy people for having to try to decide this mythical award.
You just had to jab that in there, didn't you? All right. January 26th. I know Halterman will be watching. Mike, you watch with him to watch the Eclipse Award, see who gets that award. Honestly, I'm in the industry, and I'm like, anytime the Eclipse Awards roll around, for half a second, I'm going to see, kind of get an idea, like an up to date on who's winning these, and then I'm like, I can't find anything, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, forget it. I'll just get an email about it later, and that's I'm in the industry. So, anyways, we'll see who wins the 3-year-old honors. I've got Taiba. Halterman's got Epicenter, so our votes are washed. But we'll find out next month. Oh, man. Yeah, this is a hot debate for sure. All right, let's get to
there's really, again, I just don't see a reason to get upset about it to the point where you're writing like a book on our comment sections on the day before Christmas. Like it's a very debatable topic, and nobody's really wrong, in my opinion. The thought process is the only thing that was wrong that I see so far, but I can't argue. There's people in the chat that want Epicenter, there's people in the chat that want Taiba. I get it. They're both deserving.
Bob, my son's 3 too, so I think ours should be the finalists. Forget these other 2 horses.
One thing I want to point out, Cash LA Surf, who obviously was a big Taiba fan during the chat, and I'm not dumb, Cash LA Surf, whatever your real name might be. I know that the Bob Baffert bias is going to be there, and that is one thing I hate. It shouldn't be. I know it, but I'm not a dumb, and I know it's going to be there. There's no Bob Baffert bias with me. I mean, if the horse wins it, he deserved it, and I hope people don't do that, but I know people will, and it's wrong.
All right. Well, what do you say? Let's get to the top 10. Let's go run through these. I think I'm excited to go through these.
Yep, let's do it. Happier note.
Yeah.
Although I enjoy that a lot because, like I say, there's no wrong answer, and it's like I said, when you leave it up to the voters, this is what you get. And that Caleb Posse Shackelford, I remember our buddies and our friends being pissed when that happened.
Dude, I know. I mean, it's feels like forever ago. Oh, that's the thing. I mean, like, it's gonna be hard pressed to offend us, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean that was directed toward us. I meant that's a good comment, and it could happen. I knew you weren't talking about us in general. Just as voters, it's going to happen. And the further east you go, the more that's going to happen. Let's just be honest about it, right?
Yep. All right. 2022 is almost a wrap. All the grade ones are completed. Yes, we are still talking about grade ones. And, what a great time to, as we are sitting here December 29th, only a few days left, to kind of revisit some of the big races of the year. Halterman compiled his top 10. I compiled my top 10. We kind of combined them. We fought over a little bit, get an arm wrestle who got the last choice. And we came up with our top 10 performances, top 10 races of the 2022 season. And I don't know about you, Alterman, but it was super fun going through these. There was some that you kind of like I didn't include, or I made a list and then I went back and watched it and I was like, damn, man, that was a good race. Like maybe that does deserve to be in here. It felt like that kind of year. And by the way, Taiba did not make this list. Epicenter did. So there you go. I don't know. Maybe that solves the answer. But all right, so let's kick things off. And by the way, if you guys are in the chat here, if you're listening to this, or if you're watching this later on the comments, make sure you send your comment. Let us know what your race is. What, and it doesn't even have to be like the best performance. It could be the one you made a ton of money on, or one that just kind of gave you all the feels.
Yep.
Whatever the case may be, we want to know about it. And speaking of the feels, how about number 10? Cody's Wish winning the dirt mile at the Breeders' Cup. I mean, you and I were there, Halterman, and it really was hard to, even though we didn't make money on this race, it was one of those where you're just like, you know what, that's awesome.
Definitely. I thought this was a great race, and Cyberknife ran fantastic in here. And who knows, this would have been a grade 1 race for Cyberknife. Maybe he would be 3-year-old of year if he wins it. But, we really like the 2 horses coming in as well. But the story of Cody's Wish is amazing. And it was such a ding-dong battle, for lack of a better phrase, with Cyberknife taking over, and it's like he's going to win. And then Cody's Wish comes to him, and it's like, okay, now we're gonna see Cody's Wish go by. And then Cyberknife battles back. I can remember being in that Breeders' Cup betting challenge room and everybody just screaming. This was a good one. I had the Kentucky Oaks at 10, and then you mentioned this one. I said, no, put this one at 10. It was a better race overall.
You got to give a lot of credit. We're going to see Cyberknife's last race here in the Pegasus World Cup. But you got to give a lot of credit to him. He ran his ass off here. He really did. And even when it kind of looked like Cody's Wish was going to make his move and kind of go right by him, Cyberknife dug in. He fought him off as hard as he could. And Cody's Wish was just too good. I know you had Cyberknife. We had Cyberknife. And still, at the same time, you're like, I don't care. That was awesome.
Oh, 100%. When you get to this point right here, if you're watching live, I'm like, come on, Cody, get up there. And then the re-rally, and I'm like, oh, my God, Cyberknife is a beast. He's going to win. And then, like I said, Cody just kept coming, man. And he beat Cyberknife, and then he beat Jackie's Warrior the time before. He reeled off so many wins in a row. Cheers. That was a performance of a lifetime. Like I said, maybe the best. No, maybe. There you see on the screen, the best feel-good story of the whole year.
Yeah, I mean, right there. That's when they started showing that, and Columnist had this incredible call with the race. It was just like, dude, and that, even us walking around, Keeneland, and obviously anyone there is betting on horses, and you could just tell everyone was just like, that's awesome. That what can you really do here? This is so cool. So in the winner's circle, let me look at the tears, and I watched the after, and the announcers were choked up a little bit about it, and just a really bigger than horse racing kind of moment. So to me, it definitely deserved to be in the top 10.
Agree.
All right. What do you say? Let's go to number 9. And look at the beard. Number 9. Thanks, YouTube. How about the Breeders' Cup Turf? Rebels Romance. A horse that for some reason got forgotten, Halterman. From the Appleby barn. Everyone wanted to go with the other Appleby, and he said, hang on a second. And he showed us why this horse should have been the play all along. What do you think of this one?
Well, he got forgotten because Appleby lied to everybody. He said he liked the other one better.
Yeah.
But Rebels Romance was a lot of fun. The horse floated up in price because of what you were talking about there, what we were talking about. But this was just fun. And, it's a race I feel like a lot of people, oh, maybe that's not fair. Maybe I'm putting words in people's mouth, but it's kind of the forgotten race in a way. But holy hell, did this horse put on an absolute show down the stretch that we're going to see here. And he kind of showed. He was undefeated coming in. He had been beating those horses over in Europe. He smashed this group. This was fun to watch live. And they kind of bunch up there, and then you see him emerge, and you're like, oh man, who is that? Real quick, bam, Cody's Wish, Rebels Romance. It was awesome.
I mean, this was one of those that honestly, it was from a betting standpoint, I was so mad at myself because you and I both had picked Rebels Romance, and from the whole time, and even us were like, damn, like I think he's the one. But after the Appleby comments, I really wanted to play a like $100-$200 straight double into Flightline because I was very confident in Flightline winning, and I was confident in this. The thing paid. I want to say it was 5-1, maybe higher on that double, and it's just like, dude, that was free money. And you let a guy talk you off of it. And of course, that guy happened to be the trainer. But still, like, when you look at this performance, the thing that he said, it was like he was a little bit worried about the turns for him. But if he got through the turns, that he'd be really tough. And once they kind of hit the stretch here, you kind of knew if you had him, if you were confident enough to stay on him, you had this thing won.
Yeah, absolutely. And
look at him. I mean, look at this horse come. This is just incredible effort by this horse.
It's one of those things where it's just like, I'm so glad I stuck with him, because I would have been so mad if I jumped off of him. And a lot of people did. And I feel terrible because I don't blame you guys. But yeah, he was much the best here.
Yeah. After the race, you're just like, well, there you go. That was smart to not play that horse. But anyways, hey, thanks, Shoddy.
Thank you, Shoddy.
Shoddy's trying to get, you can't bribe, in this league. Oh, maybe you can, but all right, let's go to number 8. Nest in the Coaching Club American Oaks. This performance here, Halterman, was just an incredible effort at Saratoga. Where else? Just had to be on the list.
Listen, it was amazing. And we came into this race. It was kind of the rematch. Can Nest get revenge on Secret Oath after Secret Oath got the best of her in the Kentucky Oaks? Of course, Nest coming off a runner-up in the Belmont Stakes, where with a cleaner trip, I'm not going to sit here and say she wins, but it may have been close or closer, or maybe she does win. But anyway, this race was breathtaking because she left no doubt. And by the way, we talked about the debate, Taiba, Epicenter, blah, blah, blah. This is how you win an award. You dominate the big races you're supposed to, and Nest did it, and Nest left no doubt. She should be unanimous for 3-year-old filly of the year. Probably won't because the dude out in California will probably bet or vote for the horse that run like 20 times because he likes that. But anyway, I thought Nest, this race, breathtaking. I was standing around the rail, and they ranged up, and I was standing with Vinny from Real Dynasty, and we're like, all right, here comes Secret Oath, here comes the showdown. And then we just died laughing because it's like, no, there's no showdown. She's just going to dominate this race. It was fun.
Yeah, you thought for half a second, like at this moment, I was watching it at home and I thought, oh yeah, here we go. This is what we wanted. And then you realize, of course I had Nest, but still Secret Oath is getting pumped on and they're just cruising on Nest. You knew this thing was over now. Yeah, and the amazing part about it was the Secret Oath still ran second, like it's not like the horse just stopped. No, Nest just beat the shit out of her.
Well, poor Secret Oath ran second twice to this horse. And ran really, really well. And most years would have won, but like just couldn't even touch this horse up at Saratoga. Look at her just go. I mean, like I said, Secret Oath just battling there for second, and it's over for Nest. This was awesome.
Look at that. John listening to the show. He's commenting in the show privately to our group chat. Number 10.
Yeah, John's not happy.
Cody's Wish. Yeah, by the way, I just want people to know he wrote a whole multiple paragraph response to Halterman of basically why Halterman's dumb.
I knew he would get upset. I did. And again, I want to make it clear. I didn't say that's the only reason, but I did say I don't like that that's one of his reasons.
I'm glad he called you out on it because you deserved it because you are.
I knew he would, and it's fine.
All right. This one you got. Oh, whoa. Hey,
what?
Halterman.
What? Oh, my God. What have you been watching?
Wow. Thanks, YouTube. Shoddy gave some hearts to that one. She loved that. Okay. All right. Number 7, Belmont Stakes. Mo Donegal. This race, for some reason, feels like it almost didn't happen. It was so long ago.
It does, and it kind of feels like, man, maybe it should be a little bit higher, but we had so much great racing. And I kind of alluded to that earlier in the podcast. When you look back at this, it's like, holy hell, was this a good year for racing? This was great. Mo Donegal ran a fantastic race in here that we're going to see. Skippy Longstocking ran a fantastic race in here and kind of helped set it up for Mo Donegal and Ness in this spot. As you see, we the people out there kind of on his own, but you're going to see Skippy kind of go up and try to challenge him. But yeah, it's in the whole Pletcher 1-2 exacta and Ness, the filly, kind of that story. And man, she just kept coming and coming. This really stuck out at me as something special.
Dude, I had so much love for Skippy Longstocking this race. This horse just ran so well here to really set the race up for these horses, but to put the pressure on We the People the entire way around and to still hang on and try. Like, this horse ran just a completely gutty race here. Kind of one of the unsung heroes of the race, I thought, because he did all the dirty work for the rest of them, I felt like, and still hung around. And it's a nice horse.
No question. No question. By the way, he's back this weekend in the Harlan's Holiday, the local prep for the Pegasus at Gulfstream Park. So see if Skippy will get it done this weekend. That'll be fun to kind of watch him kind of back in an easier spot than what they've kind of asked him to do lately. But yeah, he put enough pressure. We the People starts to fade a little bit. And then, boy, here comes Mo Donegal. This move here at the top of the stretch is like, yeah, we're not losing. And you see Ness, the 3-horse there on the rail. She had to check a little bit. She had to wait a little bit. And Mo Donegal, her stablemate, just kind of gets the jump on her.
Yeah, right here is when they kind of had to make that decision. And unfortunately, Ness got bottled up and had to check. Do you think Ness would have made this thing a lot closer had this horse got a better trip there?
Yes, I think it would have been tight, very tight. I think Mo Donegal still wins it. I think it gets very, very close. By the way, Nick Feldman, this is another reason why we're debating this. If Mo Donegal doesn't get hurt, does he win those big races in New York this year? And is he the 3-year-old of the year? He wins the Belmont here, and who knows how good he could have been.
Does win 3-year-old of the year if stays healthy, right? Maybe. You know, a horse that didn't run terrible in the Derby, like so many either did or didn't, wins this race, could have gone on to win, you know, Traverse or something like that. And, you know, you never know what would happen. But yeah, definitely a horse that, yeah, this is all look at this. This is awesome. So yeah, it's a horse that definitely, look at it, like those two horses, Mo Donegal and Nest, would have been a hell of a year for Repoli to get both those horses to finish the year.
You know, let's assume Mo Donegal would have went to the Haskell or the Jim Dandy. So we could have got Haskell, Mo Donegal versus Taiba versus Cyberknife, which would have proven a lot. And then Jim Dandy we would have had there with Epicenter, which could have proven a lot. So it's pretty unbelievable to think what could have been with this horse. I don't know, maybe unbelievable is the wrong word. Maybe it's a little sad to think what could have been because he was coming on strong.
But, you know, to that point, it's like, it's kind of like in football. You know, it's like, how many times do you want to say, like, oh, that guy would have been amazing, but he just could never stay healthy? Well, that's part of it, right?
For sure.
Yep. Unfortunately, I get it. Like, a horse is old. That's why we kept talking about Flightline. It's like, if he goes and doesn't win in the Classic, or say he got hurt before the Classic, would have been like this weird kind of blip where this horse freaked for a couple races, and that was it. Like, you've got to show up and you got to stay healthy. And that's why he'll never be like the best horse of all time, because he had such a short career.
Yep.
Like, that's just the reality of it. And that's unfortunate. I mean, that's like, and to go back to Epicenter, it's kind of a similar argument you can make for him as well. All right. Speaking of Epicenter, why don't we go to Epicenter makes the list in the Travers. And we have an ad, but still, Epicenter dominated the only 3-year-old, I believe, on our list. No, Rich Strike is going to be coming up in a second. But the only 3-year-old that's in the 3-year-old honors list there that made our top 10.
Well, and I think it was because this was just a breathtaking performance, right? And honestly, the Pennsylvania Derby with Taiba was just as breathtaking, but it's a Pennsylvania Derby, you know, and this is the Travers. So this one always sticks out in your mind a little bit more. You know, coming into the race, you kind of thought, what is Epicenter? Can he finally do it? Can he finally get that grade 1? And he gets it done here with such ease. And, you know, we were both there. This was a really special day. Of course, Ain't Life Grand's in this race. Unfortunately, he's up a little too close to the pace and gets cooked here. But To see Epicenter sit that stalking trip, and he's had horse that's had all kinds of weird trips. He's up at the front or he's way in the back. This is his spot. This is where he really excels, when he's right there in this third, fourth stalking spot. And the whole time you kind of thought, okay, he's going to get it done today. He's got a big shot today.
Yes, he was very good in the Travers.
Yep.
Boy, I mean, this was one. We had a pretty large bet on Epicenter here, and just one where once they asked him, you knew this thing was not going to be close.
Oh yeah. Once he kind of tipped forward, you're like, okay, where's Cyberknife? He's not stopping, but it's over. You knew Epicenter had it. And how much did he just flourish at Saratoga? Because the Jim Dandy was pretty damn good too in a paceless race, and he's last of the field and just loops them. And then look at this. I mean, same kind of thing.
I mean, just incredible. The way he was able to kind of run different styles in his career this year, and this case, came off of it a little bit, and then right here, you just knew. I mean, you got, like you said, you got to give credit to Cyberknife. He definitely fought and tried hard. But Epicenter, you talk about a horse that was ready to go that day, a horse that had been prepared for his biggest effort that day, and it certainly was.
Well, and another, you talk about injuries, I think he would have ran as a 4-year-old. Him and Taiba as a 4-year-old, like say the Pegasus or wherever they met, would have been must-see TV, and even would have been must-see TV if Epicenter doesn't get hurt in the Classic, because then, again, the debate would kind of be over in a lot of ways, right? Because one would beat the other in a legit situation. And that's the other thing. The other time they matched up in the Kentucky Derby wasn't really a legit situation for Taiba, and that also muddies the water. It's like, Epicenter beat Taiba in the Derby. Who cares? Like, a lot of horses beat him in the Derby, and then Taiba beat Epicenter in the Classic. Well, he got hurt, So both of them not ideal. So that's kind of sad. We'll never see that matchup between those two heavy hitters with a fair situation.
I know. All right, top 5 coming up, and we got one horse that shows up 3 different times in the top 5. That's how you know it was that good of a year for him. Number 5, hard to believe this race is number 5, Halterman. The Met Mile Flightline versus Speaker's Corner coming into this race on fire as well. And look at this, Flightline breaks, Pratt tries to go. Speaker's Corner says, no, not going, letting you go by me. Cutting off, tries to do it again. Says, no, cutting you off one more time. Not going to let you get it by me yet. And so Pratt just says, okay, we'll have to sit and wait here for a second. And that's what he did. And at this time, this was a big test for Flightline still. We did not quite know what he was. And you kind of were a little worried at that point.
This was unbelievable because of what you just laid out. And it's so true. The trip was so like, oh, shit. Because he never really had to do this before. And then we had a huge bet on Flightline. We had singled Flightline. Well, we had a huge exacta bet with him and Happy Saver too. And it's like, oh shit, what's he gonna do? And then right here, you're like, oh, he's gonna absolutely dominate this horse and break him. And he does. I knew Flightline was supremely talented, but this was the day I knew that he would never lose as long as he showed up. Because to get cut off and not get frustrated and not get headstrong and just do exactly what Flavian asked, it's like, no. He's the most talented horse in the country, and he can be smart when he needs to be smart. And he used that to his advantage in the next 2 races too. And I think they learned something. Sadler said after this race, we wanted him in front, but I think they learned, you know what? We don't have to gun this horse. He's not the type that he has to have the lead. Like Life is Good, who has to have it. They learned here, this horse doesn't have to have the lead. He'll do whatever you ask him.
I mean, yeah, this is. That's the thing, Nick, and I think this was like the moment where you're saying too, Halton, where you're just like, okay, now this horse is different. Like we knew when I watched the Malibu, last year's Malibu, that was a moment for me where I was like, okay, this horse isn't like real. Like this is a special horse. But when I watched this race, it was like, okay, he's more than that because he showed that he does things can go completely against him in a race, and he doesn't need that lead kind of horse. Like he showed a complete different, going across the country, running, everything was against him in this race, and he did that still.
He was kind of a bit of a burner, so to speak. He just ran really, really fast, really, really early. And so I was a little bit worried about him going long until this race. When I saw this race, I said, I have no doubt in the world he will go as long as they ask him. Why? Because he can sit. He doesn't have to have the lead. He doesn't have to burn. Again, I'll make it clear again, like life is good. We watch all of his races. Like he's a burner. He's just going to go as fast as he can, as far as he can. This horse this day, oh, he's really, really intelligent too. Yeah, good luck. You're not going to ever beat him.
Nope. No, at that moment, I felt pretty confident no matter where they decided. And when they said Pacific Classic after this, you and I both said, okay, he's number one in my classic rankings.
Yeah, single, easy winner.
Literally that from that moment, after that race, when they said we're going to the classic or we're pointing the horse towards that direction, you and I both talked to each other and were like, hey, this is number one on my list.
Yep.
Because if that's where they're pointing and I just saw what he did, how am I not going to pick this horse?
Well, when you have a horse like this and you have a guy like Sadler who's been around the block a few times, you know they don't want to get this horse beat. So they're not going to go a mile and a quarter unless they're really confident. It's never behind. He's never in second or third, since with Brad Cox anyway. And not only is he behind, he's light years behind. He needs a telescope to see life is good up there. And I just thought, this is unbelievable. This is the best race of the year. This is the best horse we'll see. And it's number 4 on our list, Jared. And he's not. Like, you're out of your freaking mind, you know? And that's, I mean, literally the last, 8th, 16th, he's not even riding him. It was amazing.
And just imagine if he would have, like.
Well, yeah.
I mean, they could that's the thing. Like, this horse was just on another level that day. And that's kind of what I feel like towards the end of the year, Life is Good kept getting forgotten, of course. And you kind of had to remind yourself, like, hey, this horse did do that. Like, this is a horse that obviously, it's like all of a sudden Life is Good is chopped liver compared to some of these other ones because of, recency, basically.
Well, the bottom line is if they never would have ran him at a mile and a quarter, he wouldn't have lost this year, most likely. They ran him at a mile and a quarter and he can't do it. Now, of course, they also ran him against Flightline. That didn't help either. Yeah. So as we'll see coming up.
Okay, number 3, our top 3. And this was the 3 that we initially, in our first rankings, we had the exact order. There's no debate about this between him and I. Number 3, hard to not use, Halterman, the Kentucky Derby. Rich Strike pulls off the upsets of all upsets in the 2022 Kentucky Derby.
One thing I'll be able to say, these next 3 races, I'll never forget where I were when they happened. And this one, I'll never, ever, ever forget it. I'll never forget the thoughts going through my head stride by stride when this happened. It was just incredible that he was able to pull this off. An incredible ride from a rider who has been heavily criticized since for rides on this horse, with one of the all-time great Kentucky Derby rides, though, in this situation. You have to give him his due. Unfreaking believable. Life is Good up the rail at huge odds. I don't know. I mean, you never say never in this game for sure. We'll be hard-pressed to see anything like this again, though.
I mean, this effort made the Mind That Bird moment just like, whatever. Not because it wasn't like the horse won. He rolled late, and the horse wasn't even in the gate 3 days before the race.
If you go back to our YouTube page, I did a video comparing Mind That Bird leading up to this race versus Rich Strike leading up to this race. Mind That Bird looked much better than Rich Strike leading up to this race. It was incredible, and Mind That Bird looked awful leading up to the race. But I mean, Rich Strike, it was just almost impossible to see this happen. So much impossible that I thought it was the number 2 horse, not the number 21 when he made the move. And I thought, oh my God, did Happy Jack just win this race? Did that really just happen?
All right, so here you go. And this is one where you just thought at the top of the stretch, like, well, it's going to be Zandon or it's going to be Epicenter. I mean, these 2 horses looked like Epicenter, it's like, and here's another comment, like, how do you lose from here?
I don't know. And again, this is why if Epicenter loses 3-year-old horse a year, I'm not going to cry any tears for him. You can't lose this race. No. You just can't from here. And you especially can't lose it to Rich Strike. If you lost to Zandon, okay, but you can't lose it to Rich Strike. So that's why Epicenter, I'm not going to cry tears over you if you lose. And there's Rich Strike. And listen, fluke or not, doesn't matter. Still an unbelievable moment in time.
Hey, Richard. Neither did Rich Strike.
Neither one of them have. No.
Mind That Bird never won again. Rich Strike has not won again. Jared, our boy Jared, standing on the turf track during the Derby. I'm shocked. I mean, no one could fathom. Like, it was it was silence because everyone saw what everyone saw the same thing that. Okay, you watch the call even like it's his Epicenter or Xanon. Who's it gonna be? It's one of the two. Like it's one of the they're slugging it out. It's what we all thought would probably happen with, obviously Taiba didn't fire, but past that, it wasn't a shocking. And then here comes Rich Strike. And it makes no sense how this happened.
I literally when they returned for home and Xanon started to range up, I thought, oh my God, Xanon's the real deal. Here comes Chad Brown's first Kentucky Derby win. He looks great. And when he starts to hang and Epicenter's fighting back, I thought, oh my God, I'm here to see Steve Asmussen's first Kentucky Derby win. How great is that? And then all of a sudden, in literally like a flash of a second, I thought, oh my God, Doug O'Neill's going to win. Wait, no, that's the 21 horse. Who is this? Who trains this horse? Who is this? I mean, it's incredible. It's like, wow, well, I saw Eric Reed's first Kentucky Derby win. So it was really quite incredible. Like just the emotions through the last 8 seconds, I would say, of this race, if not 5 seconds of this race. I don't even know what super sticker means.
I don't know, but thank you,
hey,
Shoddy. Yeah, I mean, it's just. I'm with you. We were sitting there right there on the rail, and we saw two, obviously, as well. And we all said, "Happy Jack, are you kidding me?" And even that was like 1,000% less shocking than the actual result. We found out moments later when we realized, no, that says 21. And then we're realizing, who the hell is that horse? People, we do this for a living. And we were like, what was that? Who was that again? And it's just, I don't know about you, Alterman. I do know actually, but I'll say it anyways. Like, I was so sick of answering like to people that are friends or family after the fact. Hey, did you have? It's like, no, I didn't have that horse. I didn't even know the horse was in the race until a couple days before.
A couple of people emailed us the next day and said, "Hey, why did you not even mention this horse in the Derby guide?" I said, "Hey, here's Rich Strike. He draws in. It's a great story. He has no chance to win. Would you have bet him if that was in the guide? Because that's what would have been in the guide.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and again, I'm also sick of like you should have seen it coming. Come on. I mean, nobody saw that coming. No. And I think it was really proven. The horse, he was better than I thought he would be, honestly, throughout the rest of the year, but he didn't win another race, and it's unfortunate for the fans of his, but it is what it is, right? That's the facts of it.
In my opinion, the only way you cash that race for me, there's no the only way I can have got there is if people watch the blinkers off we did with John before the race. We talked about a betting strategy that he had implemented before, and that we kind of talked about implementing this year, where you don't play Taiba or whoever, you play all on top over like a likely horse, whether it be Epicenter, whether it be Taiba. I think we would have used Taiba instead of Epicenter. That would have been the problem, because the problem is you got to go single there in that second leg if you're going all in the first leg, right? But some people could have hit that if you would have used that strategy and all over, say, Epicenter. Very logical to get there if that was your strategy.
To make John a little bit happier with me, he laid out that perfectly about backwheeling an exacta, and he did it with Mind That Bird. He loved Pioneer of the Nile, and I believe it was Kurt Hoover who said, hey, before you bet everything on Pioneer of the Nile to win, wheel it with a saver, backwheel exacta, put all, and then over Pioneer of the Nile in second, because kooky stuff happens in the Derby. Pioneer of the Nile could run really well and lose today. And John White said, that's a great idea. And he won a lot of money, but playing a backwheel exacta, because Mind That Bird won. And then there you are with your, quote unquote, logical horse, Pioneer of the Nile. Could have done it with Epicenter very easily as well, for sure. So yeah, he did lay that out. It was the strategy to use that year, for this year, I should say, for sure. We didn't do that though.
No, we didn't. We didn't at all.
No.
And all right. By the way, I saw a comment earlier. It's way too far back now, but I did see that double in the Breeders' Cup paid I think it was $10.80 for $1. The two flight line, which is just you're getting 10-1, not 5-1, 10-1 on that.
I absolutely urge everybody that's listening right now to go to YouTube and find the betting favorite, making money on big favorites, and watch the video. It's never easy to hit any bet in racing. but it's easy to look at the tote board and find value, and you can do it on heavy favorites. And there's another example. And I think the Exacta paid a ton. I didn't have it, but if you like that, the horse that finished second that day at the Classic, not that hard to bet a $20 straight Exacta over the horse you like in first and second.
Yeah, I mean, that's how badly I messed up the betting that day. Is I wanted to play that double and didn't because of I've talked myself out of the Appleby situation, and then I didn't hit it, so I went and played a huge double or Exacta flatline over Taiba and just got nosed out. It's just a dirty way to end that. So double back to back, double whammies there. All right, speaking of flight line, let's do a flight line. Talk about doubles. Let's talk about a flight line double. And let's go Pacific Classic or Breeders' Cup Classic. Pacific Classic. The number 2 on our list, the TVG Pacific Classic flight line. Let's not forget, going into this race, obviously he'd won the Met Mile, very lightly raced. Still now it's going to stretch out for the first time, and I don't want to say names to people that are big fans of our show, but a lot of people were very critical of us for being so confident in our boy flight line here that he would stretch out, and boy, did he prove us right.
Like I said, I was kind of not with him, but kind of skeptical as well until I saw that Met Mile race. I thought, no, he'll be fine. Okay, number one, this is a Pacific Classic. Flightline's another race for number 1. They're debatable. It's like Taiba Epicenter or 1-2 here, right? Because this was absolutely breathtaking. If this is your number 1 pick for the year, I get it. We have another race next that we'll talk about, and I'll give the reasons why I kind of said, hey, we'll go number 1 with this spot. But I was driving home from Norman, Oklahoma, an OU football game, and we were watching this race in the car, my dad and I, and we both looked at each other like, that's something you just don't see. You just never see that in this kind of race. And the way, once he made the move, I looked at my dad and I'm like, it's over. And he's like, they're not even on the turn. I was like, it's over.
Yeah.
He just put them all away with one ask. And I said, and Dad's like, look at him, like they're not even asking him to do anything right now. And this is when you ask a horse for its best. The race already over. I mean, this was incredible.
I mean, just it went from being like, I told you, I knew this horse could do it, to being like, oh my gosh, like this, just stop what you're doing and watch this because you'll never see it again, like Jared says here. I mean, it took forever for another horse to get to the finish line there.
It's not often you get chills when you watch this over and over and over every single day. That was just a oh my God, I can't believe that just happened type of race.
And at that moment, I was, please God, let this horse stay healthy.
Oh yeah, because you knew the Breeders' Cup would be next, and you're just like, sometimes the Breeders' Cup, you want those great betting races, but as fans of the games, and we're all bettors, but a lot of us are fans. We're all fans as well, I should say. But sometimes it's just like, I just want to see greatness happen on the grand stage, and that's what we got to see.
Beholder's Pacific Classic was amazing, but it was not more impressive, I must say. It was very impressive. Yeah. Definitely the most impressive Pacific Classic up until this one.
I think it was the second. Yeah, I would put it second for sure. And I remember when we were that day, we were at our favorite restaurant, Aurora, and we were watching that. And we're like, oh my God, like we were almost in tears watching her do that.
Yeah.
This was better. Sorry.
I just can't imagine what some of the people that were picking against Flightline thought about that moment in the turn there. We were like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
Flightline,
it was like, it was different emotions, right? When she made that move around the turn, it almost did bring you to tears. It's like a female, she's beating the boys, and it's like she just ran the absolute perfect race. She'll never run that good ever again. And that's not a knock on her. It's just the fact that Richard Mandela had her ready to run the perfect race that day. This was just, he's a fucking freak.
Exactly. And and the way she ran that race that day was, it was maybe visually more, the move was visually more impressive because it was just like from this, Gary Stevens went from nothing to just boom. Now she's in front and it was over. So, and a little, I don't know, I guess maybe a little less expected, but yeah, it was truly an unbelievable performance. And then Flightline and yeah, so you and I both had this horse or that race ranked number 2. And so obviously there's one big race that we are leaving out, and you know what it is. It is The Breeders' Cup Classic. Number one, the Breeders' Cup Classic. Who else but Flightline? Haltman, we were there for this one as well. And right here, you kind of, it was a very interesting move because at first it kind of looked like maybe he was going to try to battle with Life is Good really early on, which is what the last thing we wanted to see. And we talked about it earlier, how smart this horse was. Pratt just said, nope, not yet. And they backed off.
Imagine having this much talent and also listening to your jockey. I mean, that's what it was. Pratt said, okay, big boy, calm down a little bit. I'll let you free stride, but now you need to sit off. And Flightline, I would vision in my mind. He said, okay. And so he just sat right off of him. And it was just breathtaking. And listen, if you want to put Pacific Classic number one, I get it. Probably overall, it was the more impressive of the two as far as just a jaw-dropping performance. But guys, to toss aside Life is Good like he's a dog, it's something I can't even describe. It's just so incredible to see. And to hold off horses so good, and they're not even in the picture. It's incredible. And the movie makes here when you get next to Life is Good and it's no battle at all and no resistance, it's just like, God, it's incredible to see him do this.
And you almost think, if you're not a believer, you're thinking this is going to be an unbelievable meltdown right here. Yep. Both these horses are about to fall off the track because they've been running so fast, nose to nose. And the poor Life is Good. It's just done what he does every race where he runs his ass off. And this horse just said, I'm not leaving you. And then it said, see ya. Look 100%. At that. I mean, holy shit.
And look at this. Like, he's really still not asking him to do just a whole hell of a lot. He's hand riding him, but there's no whip. There's nothing. And it's just like, where are the rest of the horses? They're nowhere to be found. These are the best horses we've got, and they're nowhere to be found. Stupid Taiba getting third. Damn it. 8-1 on that exacta. Unreal.
Tell me about it. Because from the moment I knew he was going to win Flightline, I immediately started going back and watching Taiba because I was like, all right, Taiba, get up. And I thought he had it. I really did. Olympiad ran a big race. By the way, I want to go back to a part of this race. This is as they enter or they exit the first turn here. And these horses, Flightline is in second place, and he's what, 8 links, maybe 10 links ahead of Taiba and Hot Rod Charlie there. Like, let's pause that for a second. If you say if you leave either horse out, if no Life is Good in the race, or if you don't have Flightline, like, look at that gap. I get that. The more I've watched this race, I have zero doubt in my mind that if there was no Flightline, Life is Good would have been in the winner's circle that day. And I know that, like you said, well, look at what he did. Well, he kept running harder because that's what he does. He kept getting pushed and pushed by Flightline. He's going faster and faster. They kept going faster. Without that, imagine, Life is Good is 4 or 5 links ahead of everyone else. He's got more in the tank left for the end of the race. I think Life is Good ran a huge race in the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, Mike Smith had the best quote of all when I was reading this. Of course, he's on Taiba. And he said, look, I rode Taiba just thinking, hey, those horses are going way too fast. They'll come back to us. He's like, one came back to us and one didn't. And he's like, you can't run that fast and not come back to you. Like, how do you beat that? And the answer is you don't. I asked Kelby one time about American Pharoah. He goes, like, how do you beat him? He goes, like, look, if he shows up, you don't beat him.
Yeah, that's it.
Like, well, that's pretty simple. And it's the same with Flightline. If he shows up, now obviously every horse can lose. Sometimes they just don't show up with that great effort. It's hard to do it every time, but if they show up, you don't beat them, and you're never going to beat Flightline if he shows up. It's virtually impossible unless you have another absolute freak of a horse, and there's not many that you can say are as freaky as what this horse was.
I mean, it's just the way he just disposes of that horse.
Yeah.
And just keeps going. It's not like everyone kept it's like Life is Good fell back and everyone started getting closer to Life or to Flightline. No, he just extended. Like, he was still going faster. Just an unbelievable effort. And just the horse that you can't really even describe. That's why people, like, I've seen a lot of comments, Secretariat or Flightline, Secretariat or Flightline. It's an impossible question to ask. It's an impossible one to figure out. But the fact is that I think we'll always wonder that debate. And that, to me, adds a lot to the lore of what he is, right?
Guys, the fact that that's even mentioned
Exactly.
tells you all you need to know. And what I just said, if you beat him, you got to have a free course. Well, free courses like Secretariat, maybe Ghost Sapper, maybe they could have beat him. But that's what you're going to have to take. You couldn't take, let's say, Fort Larned. Say, hey, this is a Breeders' Cup Classic winner. Could he beat Flightline? No, he'd lose by 20. Mucho Macho Man, no. But, like it would take a absolute freak of a type of horse. I don't think California Chrome could touch this horse.
No.
Arrogant at his best, maybe he could touch him. Honestly, I think he would kill American Pharaoh even, honestly. So he is just an all-time talent.
Well, the scary part about Flightline is that we'll never know is just we never got even anywhere remotely close to his bottom. We saw Pharaoh's bottom in the Derby. Maybe it was a B effort, but he worked for it.
Yeah.
We saw his bottom in the Travers. We saw Justify's bottom probably in the Preakness. He did everything he could to win that race. We saw Arrogant's bottom, when he had to work his ass off to get in. He ran a huge race, but he ran his ass off in Dubai, and in the Breeders' Cup. We never saw Flightline get out of second gear.
Nope.
Ever.
Nope.
Not once.
Nope.
So it's like to say how good is he? We can't compare because we don't know how good he is.
On his best day, there's just a handful that were as good as him. And listen, if you're an older guy and you never beat Secretariat, okay, I don't care. But the fact that we're even debating it tells you what you need to know. We're all going to have our favorites depending on what era we grew up in, right? If there's a horse 30 years from now that looks as good as Flightline, we're all going to or you and I will probably say, oh, he wouldn't have beat Flightline. And the younger kids will go, yeah, he would have. The Flightline, that was 30 years ago. Who gives a shit? That's just how it is. But the fact that he's mentioned with those horses tells you what you need to know. And we'll never know if he could have beat those horses or not. Nobody could ever know that.
There you go. Our top 10 right there. You saw it here first. It's getting darker and darker behind Halterman.
It's crazy, man. When I started this, it was bright out, and boy, it gets dark quick in Colorado. I think I
just realized I haven't really been looking at you. I was everybody else. I just looked at you and I thought, holy shit, how long have we been doing this?
I didn't put my ring light on because, like I said, it was sunny. Like the sun was shining into the window behind me. And within about an hour into the show, I'm like, oh, I'm in the dark. So little ghost stories from Estes Park, Colorado now, if you want it.
All right, there you go. Number 10, the Dirt Mile. The number 9, the Breeders' Cup Turf. 8, Coaching Club American Oaks. 7 was the Belmont Stakes. Number 6, the Travers. Number 5, the Met Mile. Number 4, the Pegasus. 3 was the Derby. 2 was the TVG Pacific Classic. And 1, the Breeders' Cup Classic. Make sure you guys let us know in the comments below who you liked as your number 1 race of the year. What a year it's been for 2022. Hopefully 2023 can somewhat live up to that. Yeah, hopefully when you guys went through those with us, watching those, you realize like what we realized going through. I'm like, shit, man, that was a good year. And yeah, to a lot of people's comments, I've been seeing some on here like, yeah, we didn't put Regal's Glory Race in there. We didn't put Modern Games in our top 10. I really wanted to put him in there. The Kentucky Oaks, a race for Secret Oath ran huge. It was another one that we wanted to include, just couldn't. So it was just that kind of year for sure.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And Modern Games was, I almost put Breeders' Cup Turf Mile. He would have been like 11, 12, something around in there. I saw somebody mention Regal Glory. Like you said, it's like, yeah, that's a top 15, top 20. So yeah. Yeah. There's a Ouija board right behind me. Honestly, if you guys have ever watched The Shining, it was shot in the Stanley Hotel, which is here in Estes Park, Colorado. We're actually going to go to the Stanley Hotel tonight for a tour. So if you've watched The Shining, we're going to go where that's filmed. So that'll be fun.
That's going to be scary.
We've got kids and they want to go. The kids want to go. So.
I would love, by the way, I love that movie, which I know most people do. Yeah. I would love that. I'm super jealous. That will be fun.
So the Stanley Hotel sits, there's mountains all around this town. It's a valley. And then the Stanley Hotel sits up high, up, like overlooking the whole town.
Let me know. Let me know if there's they really do have a maze, like a maze outside, like made out of brush, like out of the bushes. That'd be cool if they did. Let me know.
I'm gonna let you know that. I'll text you.
Man, yeah, watch the walls.
It's funny. We came into town and a couple of the younger people that are with us. We got 10 of us here, the whole family, based on my mom's side, and they were like, the first thing they asked is, where'd they do The Shining? And so you could see it from like a mile away. Like I say, it sits up high. And they're like, oh, that's creepy. It's all white hotel. It is kind of creepy. It's cool.
All right, that's all the time we have. Check us out at racingdudes.com for our free picks and our premium selections on our products page. Click the Get Racing Dudes premium button at the menu at racingdudes.com to learn more. Congratulations to our boy, Dan Waite, Racing Dudes Tournament Challenge champion. Last week, or I guess to say Monday, just almost went gate to wire in the thing. Just really started off strong. I think the 111 or something like that was fine. I mean, he absolutely rolled. That's anytime you can get into triple digits in a tournament, especially on one card, not like the throughout the country. A lot of times it's different tracks, which makes it a little easier because they kind of pick the races that you can make money on. No, this was all from Santa Anita's card, and that was an impressive effort from Dan. So, friend of the show, friend of us in our Racing Dudes Fantasy League as well. Dan, man, he won.
I'm so proud of Dan. We poke fun at Dan all the time. He wins it. I got to send him his $500 check. Way to go, Dan. I'm really proud of Dan. Great job. Great job.
The great thing about having a friend, win is like we can just like delay whenever we want to pay him. It's like, oh yeah, we'll get it to you.
He called me the other day, and I'm sure it was asking where the check is. I haven't really. I'm in Colorado, Dan. I'm not writing your check right now.
Oh, Dan's watching. Sorry, Dan. Never mind. We'll get it to you really fast.
I was literally in the mountains when you called, Dan. I'm not answering that call. You're just looking for your money.
Dan, you'll get it when you get it, okay?
Yeah. Maybe never.
But no, congratulations. I mean, really, it's a super impressive effort. Like I said, it's like, if you don't play tournaments, like to do it, to put up that kind of number in a card that's all from one track, especially Santa Anita, that's impressive. So it seems like he kind of hit the big ones where you needed to hit the big ones and was able to play the short prices when you needed to do those. And he held on. It was close. He says it wasn't about the check, so we'll see. I don't know. I don't know if I believe that. Anyways, all right. Congratulations again to Dan being our maybe first and only Racing Dudes Tournament Challenge champion. I don't know. We'll see if we bring that sucker back or not. Dan might be the long live the champion forever. All right. You can make sure you go check us out on at Racing_Dudes on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find all episodes of Blinkers Off by visiting our podcast page, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon, Stitcher, Captivate, all the places you watch and listen to podcasts. We are there. Go check out the Magic Mike show. I think, did they die or no? Are they alive?
Yeah, they both died.
Okay, they died. Okay, so
I think they're coming back from the dead next week, though.
Okay, they're back. All right, so they'll be back next week. So no Magic Max show. But again, if you like our content, if you like our videos, or you like what we were watching, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell on our YouTube page, because we are going to be doing obviously more and more of these, and we're going to roll into the next year. The Derby trail really gets going. We'll be having tons and tons of Derby content on the site as well. Halterman, final thoughts as we, how about your final thoughts of 2022? How about that? You put a bow on all your thoughts for the year.
It's been a fun year. Everybody have fun. Everybody have a good new year. I don't have anything else. It's been fun.
How long are you out there for?
I'm coming back on New Year's. So I'll be back on New Year's. Yeah. So we'll spend New Year's here. Oh, I did learn a new phrase. Here's my final thought for 2022. Are you ready?
Yeah.
If you get drunk and high at the same time, it's called getting crossed.
Did not know that.
So me and some of the younger folks here of age are going to get crossed for New Year's Eve. That's the plan.
Wow.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm not getting crossed. It's not happening.
Yeah, I would not recommend anybody get high with this guy.
No, and I wouldn't get crossed. There's no way.
Are you are you just stick with drunk?
Yeah, that's what I'll do. Yes. I even told her, I said, I'm not getting crossed. No. But listen, she said that, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. I've learned a lot of different things. So,
is it Kronk?
Kronk? No, crust.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he's talking about something else.
Yeah. Seriously though, great year for everybody. Thanks everybody. We really ramped up the YouTube page, and you guys came through in a big way. So we appreciate all of y'all listening, and hopefully we get some more of y'all in 2023. That's the plan, right?
To build up to the Derby. We'll keep having that content, keep having more and more. We got a few things we're working on in the works, so stay tuned for that, for just to get you guys more content. And I guess for the final time of 2022.
Oh, look at this! It's a koozie.
Oh, that's all. Wow!
Just for
where'd you find that?
My brother got it for me. He found it and he said, "Here, I bought this for you."
That's awesome.
They're squishy too.
What a nice brother you have.
He is nice. Yeah, he's very nice. We've drank a lot together, so this is coming handy.
He knows you. He knows you too well.
He does. He does.
All right, guys. Good luck this weekend. Happy New Year. Boobs. See you guys.